Welcome to Dark Side of the Moon.
Welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, Noel John Toohey.
We got Karen Mack in the back, and this is Dark Side of the Moon. Let's get to it, motherfuckers. All right, no, we're back, and we're going back to the start, but we didn't go back to the start alone. We brought a guest along with us, and this time we brought fantasy author Ben Galley. Ben, go tell the folks who you are, what you do, and why you come here.
Hey guys, yeah, great to be on the show. I'm Ben Galley. I'm a fantasy author, currently living in Victoria, Canada. I'm the author of currently 15 fantasy books, ranging from a couple of series, basically anything from Norse fantasy through Weird West, alternate history, Egyptian mythology fantasy, and a range of different stuff in between. So
hard-working
been doing it for about it's been a long time as well. Hard work, a lot of time, and some luck along the way, as it always happens. 10 years now, roughly, I've been working on this.
Jesus.
So you're what Vinny's pretending to be.
Pretend to be, trying to be, you know. I'm going to Tanton Mr. Ripley him.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
I was like, hey Ben, do you want to go on holiday in Rome? Do not go on holiday in Rome. I just come back, my hair's completely different. I was like, call me Benjamin.
That's it.
Weird West, is that a genre? Is that, because it sounds like it probably is. Weird West.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so as well. Now that I've said it, I've been calling my books Weird West, and if no one knows it, that's Western fantasy, Weird West. I mean, I think they kind of.
I like it. I like that. Just like the sound of it. I can see myself using it, claiming it.
Noel's entire series, the Weird West series by Noel John Toohey.
Weird West, original concept.
Coined completely by Noel John.
Purge this recording.
This episode, delete. It's like every time Ben mentions Weird West, it just like bleeps out. It's like, I wrote books in that. Beep, beep.
Sorry, folks, you keep saying the N-word. Okay. Why are we here today, Ben?
So, Ben, we brought you back. As I said, we mentioned we're going back to the start. Over here on Dark Side of the Moon, we cover a lot of Marvel content. And what I meant by going back to the start, we went back to the start of the MCU. We're starting this new series. We're hoping to get a lot of cool people on, such as yourself, to talk about the first phase of the MCU, starting back all the way in 2008. So long ago now, like 13 years being with us.
Yeah.
And no better place to start, obviously, at the beginning was with Iron Man. And Ben, when Iron Man initially came out, first of all, are you a big fan of the comic books? And then when it came out initially, were you excited to hear about it? And did you have any high expectations going in?
I mean, I was over the moon. I've always been quite a cinephile, so I mean, I'm always like one of these people that's like watching trailers like 10 times over and be like, oh, did you see this bit and that bit? And like, oh my God.
In the top left corner.
That's it. What is that symbol in the background? I'm like, in the way.
Enhance. Just like zooming in on the laptop.
So
sorry, I talked over you there.
I dropped the Brett, and I was just the one who'd listen, or just asking anyone who'd listen. Oh, no worries. I forgot to delay. I can always repeat anything. I just remember that trailer coming out and just being obsessed with it, telling anyone who'd listen about it, and being really excited to see it in the cinema. So it came from, I think, basically the original cartoon that came out in the, I want to say, late 90s, early noughties. And I've just religiously watched that. So Iron Man has always been one of my favorite characters from the Marvel Universe, as well as Spider-Man. It's got to be one of those as well. Same. Yeah. I grew up with a lot of the comics as well. Stole one from my mate back in primary school, and then just got obsessed with it.
Repurposed
back to him. That's it, and repackaged it and gave it as a Christmas gift. Be like,
live up to rewatching, do you think?
Dude,
we think
I got the same DVDs, The Ring 1 and 2. I got them one year for my sister for Christmas, and the following year she got me a pair of DVDs. And she got me The Ring Part 1 and 2 again. And literally the first set had laid on my shelf unopened for a year. And I was like, she really likes these movies, I guess. But Ben, you said you're a fantasy author, and did when you grew up reading comic books, did any of that kind of bleed into your works, do you feel, or
lead you down the path even?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, obviously the stories are inherent to the comic and the graphic novel world. Not just the art. It's great if we get the extra layer of art.
Yeah.
They come in tandem. But yeah, definitely, the stories that are told in there, kind of the anti-hero, the hero struggle, having a wide range of characters and telling from multi-POVs as well. I really enjoyed that about, a lot of different comics. And I mean, the darkness as well that some of the comics go to through their emotional struggle, or when you get outside Marvel and go to things like 300 Watchmen, stuff like that, it's brutal, which I love as kind of more of a dark and grim fantasy author. And so it taught me a lot. I think it's definitely one of the mediums that kind of instilled this, I would say, thirst for creativity, or just this obsession with creativity and telling stories. So definitely.
And it's a short form of telling stories comics. It was like 22 pages with pictures. There wasn't an awful lot of words, but it had a start, middle, and ending. I think it was good for if you want, when you're writing stories yourself, it was a very short form 101 of how to do it.
Yeah, it teaches you structure.
Absolutely.
Even when you don't know it is, even though it's not like a teacher standing over you telling you. I think it just...
And it teaches you structure and how to be concise in storytelling, I find too. Do you know, like a kind of onomatopoeic type storytelling where you use a lot of like bang, 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 because you'll see that in a comic book, and when I write, I find that like I use a lot of, like if you're trying to describe stuff, I find that I use those onomatopoeic words, the drip, drip, drip for water, bang, bang, flash, whatever, and the pop and stuff, and you're describing stuff, and I think a lot of that comes from comic books.
Oh, yeah.
When you see that written on the page and it leaves that lasting impression in you.
The 1960s Batman with all the...
Kapow,
there's a
the weirdest ones as well. The weirdest words they use, like, I don't know, slapash.
my favourite will always be Captain America throws his shield at a robot in a 60s comic, and it said wank. Just hit him, and it just said, honest to God, in big red letters, it just said wank.
Wank. Every time I throw something now, I'm just going to shout that.
Yeah, on that kind of level, it's kind of like, it does, you could imagine taking all other meaning from it. It does sound kind of onomatopoeic in terms of something metallic hitting another.
Something metallic, a punk. And
because it reminds you of clanking or something,
Wank up. It's always been my favourite.
Could you imagine in the movies of Captain America, Steve Rogers, like Chris Evans, every time he throws the shield, he's like, wank! Wank!
Oh, that would be hilarious. I don't think they would have made as much at the box office.
No. There's quite a lot of money they put into Iron Man as well. It was over
140 million.
But considering it didn't have like 25 films behind it, they rolled the dice on that. Like.
Yeah, it was a big moment for Marvel because this is pre-MCU. This is the MCU in its embryonic stage, where you had such an important pivotal moment for Marvel. What they really needed to do is to convey their message correctly, gather a new audience as well as retain the old audience, but also cast the right people in the right roles. And they did that. And that was Kevin Feige came in. He replaced Avi Arad at the time, and he was to lead Marvel Studios. And Avi Arad, who had a big say in who the casting was, and his first decision was, let's keep Robert Downey Jr. Let's use Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark. And I think because of all those brave decisions at the start, and maybe a lot of luck, because of the way people took the source material and took this new iteration of it to heart very quickly. But I think like Marvel at that time had to make some brave decisions, and every one of them seemed to pay off. The 140 million budget, the tone of the movie, getting Jon Favreau, who had directed barely anything at the time, to come in and be the lead director, to be the stalwart of your universe. And it's such an important time.
Things right, and this did.
Yeah, he's just like a godsend, isn't he? Like Jon Favreau, like he just makes the best stuff. Like it's like he just gets it. It's like I watched the making of The Elf recently, and he just got that it had to be a Christmas movie. It's very core. It could be whatever else it had to be, but its very core, it had to be a Christmas movie, and he just gets what movies need to be. And I think that's why he was such a good fit for Iron Man at that time. He just got what the MCU was going to be, and he got what Iron Man needed to be at the same time,
Absolutely. I mean, because it was Marvel's first self-funded film, wasn't it, in terms of what they were going to do. And even though there was a bit in, was it The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton, that kind of, there's a bit in it, it was the first end cut scene, wasn't it? I think?
Yeah.
Am I right?
The second
in the
Tony
bar with
Stark
Tony
shows
Stark.
up.
With what's his face drunk in the bar, Thaddeus Ross.
Yeah.
And just that. I mean, I remember seeing that and being like, well, hello. I'm intrigued. Okay. okay, you've got my attention. And then, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They made the right decision on both producer and director. And I think also I read something a little while ago that I hope it's true. It's on IMDb.
The internet never
It's on the internet, Ben. I'm sure it's true.
As in, I haven't done a lot of research, but I read it somewhere. That, it was a choice of Jon Favreau's to have Robert Downey Jr. Or part of the reason behind the choice was the fact that obviously Robert, Mr. Downey Jr. had basically lived his entire life in the kind of public arena already, ups and downs, and was kind of used to that sort of, I wouldn't say like billionaire lifestyle, but in terms of that kind of Playboy lifestyle. And I think that's kind of interesting because I think Tony's a perfect Iron Man. Robert. That's how invested I am.
Even in the opening scene, before he does anything Iron Man, he's just a dude with a drink in the back of the car with some soldiers. I loved him straight away. Straight away. The flawed hero, because you said anti-hero, and you're right. He's not. So I wouldn't. Maybe not as far as anti-hero, but he's not.
No, you're absolutely right.
He's not Superman.
A very human hero.
Captain America. Yeah, he's very human. He's got he's obviously a little bit too fond of the drink. He's too fond of the ladies and all that sort of stuff. But a hero at the core, I remember just straight away going, this feels right. Just straight away.
Great, yeah.
And even though there's been some great castings since, I don't think I've ever seen that topped. I really don't.
The closest to it is probably Chris Evans and Steve Rogers.
Heath Ledger is as a Joker.
Well,
absolutely.
I was talking in the MCU.
In the MCU,
here's the rules. I'm changing them
to DC. Quickly into the DC window. Oh dear. Yeah, I think. Like the way that Robert Downey Jr. plays Tony, or at least the way that the character of Tony Stark is portrayed in, I think, this movie and in the MCU later on, is first meet him, he's like Playboy, doesn't really give a shit. It's cavalier. Obviously, he just has incredible wealth to do whatever he wants, and it's almost like he's never really grown up. And he's also got a lot of regret behind his family, and obviously his mother as well, who he didn't have a chance to technically say goodbye to. Obviously, comes back in Civil War, etc. Spoilers.
Parents are both called Martha.
That's it. I love that reference in Deadpool 2 as well. I watched that skipping somewhere else in the MCU, and it's just like, we'll find out both our parents have the same name. It's so funny. But yeah, you see, I literally watched Iron Man again this morning, probably for the 50th time since 2008, maybe 100th, I don't know. You just see a lot of regret in Tony Stark. First in the cave and seeing what his weapons have done, but obviously overall regret in terms of not having the power to save his father, despite being the most intelligent world, the Da Vinci of the time.
Don't be ridiculous. He does some paint, Ben.
Very good. But it was,
I think he prefers the Merchant of Death.
It was that whole despite how intelligent he is, we're talking literally his superpower is his intelligence. His intelligence we won't be able to put it on a scale in real world terms. And all of this was happening under his nose. So it just showed that despite how flawed he was, there was just oh fuck this.
He really so naive he is too.
Not this much further.
Doesn't he? In that moment, though, when he sees what his weapons are being used for and how his company is behaving, that he realizes how naive he is. He understood that he was this brilliant man, this playboy, philanthropist, whatever. But in that moment, I think he understands that, actually, I'm really naive. I've been living in a bubble. The real world's been going on. I think I'm a part of it, but I'm not. I'm separated from it. And this is what the real world is doing. These are the real consequences of my weapons and my technology and my brilliance. That I wanted to protect the American military, but instead I am, in a sense, a war criminal because my technology is being used in enemy hands and it's being used to kill American soldiers who he swore to protect. And that's what I love about that scene. It just teaches Tony what the real world really is, because it's kind of like Elon Musk. I'm sure he thinks he has an idea of what the real world is, but he doesn't even understand what existence is anymore because he's been living in a different plane of it.
He's gone off the deep end. Yeah, he's like the Michael Jackson of eccentric billionaire.
What?
He literally lived on Mars.
There you go. Exactly. But what did you think Jeff Bridges? I remember watching this as kind of like Jeff Bridges was the dude. From The Big Lebowski.
I'm a card-carrying dude as priest over here. Thank you very much.
And you couldn't imagine him as a bad guy, and not a bad guy, like a proper piece of shit. like, you know, industrious man. The bottom line is all that matters.
Yeah. Ironmonger's Tony.
He was great. He was absolutely brilliant in the role. There was no weakness in this role. The only weakness was maybe what's the name of Terrence Howard? Is it?
Terrence Howard's incredible.
His negotiation tactics.
Oh, he's good. Oh, yeah.
Probably left something to be. Yeah, Don Cheadle in the background.
He's too easy.
I think that.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think that you're absolutely right on that, because it was an interesting change. You got to Iron Man 2 and you're like, right, okay, they changed that actor, but why? And I had the story of asking for more money and it didn't sit well, but I don't know again how true that is.
I think he wanted as much money as Robert Downey Jr.
More money than Robert Downey Jr.
More.
Yeah, because at the time,
really?
Terrence Howard had recently been nominated for an Oscar for Hustle and Flow. So his star was very much on the rise. His stocks are, he stinks. You see that online, but he's very much on the rise at the time, and he was on the back of being nominated for an Oscar. I think it might have been pre Iron Man 1 or in between Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, but he was on the back of being nominated for an Oscar in and around that time. So I think that's what he felt his worth was at its highest. And Robert Downey Jr. coming back from the tumultuous period in his career, he probably felt, well, if Robert Downey Jr. is after coming from his lowest and I'm coming from my highest, maybe we should be at least on a par.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I don't know. It's an Iron Man movie. It's an Iron Man movie.
Yeah,
you know, there's a good chance that like Christian Bale had the bank on Batman, and there's a good Hugh Jackman met it on Wolverine. You know, it's
true. It's true. His name's on the poster.
I think he overplayed his hand, but he was great in the film.
Yeah,
like, you know, it's a pity that you know, like that scene where he looks at one of the suits and he goes, "Next time,
baby."
Yeah, next time, baby.
And it just lines that up.
Yeah.
Lines that up.
It's so soul destroying every time you see it. He's like, "There's not going to be a next time for you, Terrence Howard."
It's very true.
Ben, you touched on Iron Man 2. I won't jump off Iron Man. What did you make of Don Cheadle's casting to replace Terrence Howard as James Roddy Rhodes?
Yeah, I mean, I think Terrence Howard's a fantastic actor. I really enjoy him in a lot of films, including Hustle and Flow. Crash is one of my favorites as well.
Great movie.
I think he plays a great role in that. And yeah, well deserving of that Oscar. There's something about the difference, though, once you saw Don Cheadle's performance. And I think it's not necessary acting skill or anything like that. I think it's just how they chose to play the role. Yeah. And I think there's a bit more, I don't know, of kind of a harder attitude maybe to Don Cheadle's Rhodes.
More stoic.
Yeah, stoic. I'd say kind of stern. He kind of takes less of Tony's shit as well.
Yeah, he does have a military man thing, didn't he?
Yeah, Terrence Howard's more playful.
Yeah.
He seemed more like he would be Tony Stark's best friend.
Yes, actually, that's a good.
You know, that kind of way. To me, Terrence Howard.
Cheadle felt like a guy who could work with Iron Man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it kind of felt like they met after the relationship. Yeah, exactly. It kind of felt like they met after he'd become Iron Man, and he was his attaché or liaison for the military government. Yeah, Osna. Like, it didn't seem like they had. Whereas Terrence Howard and Robert Downey Jr. felt they had flawless chemistry. Like the part of the plane where he's like, "No, Tony, we're here to work," and then they do a cut scene, and the two boys are locked drunk, and the women are dancing and stuff. You know, I just couldn't imagine Don Cheadle in that role.
No, that's it. It's more of the military background. You can see, I mean, I know obviously both characters had like service, but you can see more of, I don't know, like a desk job, the way that I think the first Rhodes is portrayed. And I think that's not a bad choice at all, because obviously it's kind of, you know, his job is flying around with Tony Stark. So yeah, I just think it was great. But yeah, I prefer, obviously, you know, Don Cheadle smashed it in terms of the choice, and then obviously is in the rest of the films and just does a fantastic job.
But he gets to settle into it then. He's in it over years. He gets to settle into it.
Yeah, I still think Terrence Howard's a better roadie though.
Yeah, I don't know, actually, to be honest with you.
I'll fight you right now, Noel.
I just think they're both fine actors. It's one of those things where, and you know, he never got a standalone film. Yeah. You know, he was an important kind of player, but he never got a standalone, so it's a little, it could be up for debate.
No, I think like with what the screen time they've had and what they've done with it, I think Terrence Howard still leaves a more of a lasting impression in the role.
I get you.
Because like even when I go back to it, you're kind of disappointed when you see that scene you mentioned, "Next time, baby." Yeah. And you're not disappointed because James Roddy Rhodes never came back. You're disappointed because Terrence Howard's portrayal of that character never came back.
Yeah, it was good. Like, there was chemistry, and like you said, he was playful, but that's not really what he is in the comics. Yeah. In the comics, he is actually like very much so the guy with the mission who has an Iron Man suit, while Iron Man is the guy, the loose cannon who has the Iron Man suit, you know.
Absolutely.
What Gwyneth Paltrow played Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah. You know, she played it flawlessly because she is Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah, she's got such great charisma though. She's a lot of charm though, doesn't she? Like,
she does.
She plays off Robert Downey Jr. brilliantly, and I think
Because she has quite, I think, she's quite a strong character in the fact that she's quite, even though Tony is this billionaire playboy, she's kind of very reserved and away from it and just kind of like, this is still a job. I'm very professional about it.
She's the one who keeps it linear. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I think it's quite testament to her acting skills as well. Because I found out it's. What was I trying to say? Oh yeah, because I found out that it was the Robert Downey Jr.'s approach for it, and obviously the filming schedule. There weren't many rehearsals, and a lot of it was kind of without a script, so a lot of it was ad-libbed on his part, which I think Jeff Bridges and Gwyneth Paltrow have reported saying like it was a bit difficult because they didn't know what he was going to say. But they just both got into it, and obviously they both really act incredibly with whichever lines the Robert Downey Jr. is coming up with at the time. And yeah, it's really cool. I think they're both great characters, both cast really, really well. And yeah, I think they do the. I don't know if we're jumping forward a little bit and spoilers again.
Oh, you can jump all over the place. The film's 13 years out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. Yeah, true.
If they haven't seen it, it's on them.
Exactly. Yeah. Obviously the switch from best friend and kind of sort of somewhat mentor to villain as well. The classic trope, great fun.
Obadiah Stane.
I think exactly. I think Jeff Bridges plays Obadiah Stane and Ironmonger really, really well. And it wasn't a twist. You sort of could see a twist coming, especially if you read the comics. And he said Ironmonger in the arc reactor room and all that sort of stuff. Big old heap of foreshadowing. But it's still good, and it still kind of gets you. I remember just being like, no, still,
I love
when he turns.
Obadiah kind of goes to him. Tony Stark built one of those in a fucking cave. He goes, I'm not Tony Stark.
Exactly.
It's like the technology doesn't exist.
Exactly. You know what I love about that scene? I need to go check it back because I was typing something. I've just had it on while I was working this morning. But having that character, that guy who's saying, I'm not Tony Stark, come back in that Spider-Man Far From Home. No, not Far From Home. Yes, Far From Home film, the second one.
Oh, no. Far From Home, yeah.
Yeah, when he's part of Mysterio's crew, and it does.
Oh
I was like, great callback. Who knew that guy would have? Yeah, who knew that guy would have a slight future, a very small future?
Yeah, just imagine he's just in his kitchen one day and he gets a call and they go, seriously? Me?
Exactly.
Like the guy who had that one line, I'm not Tony Stark.
It's kind of like the Wayne's World thing though, isn't it? It's like, I know it's a small part, but we can do better. Always put strong people even in small roles. You have a strong movie there. Do you think that Gwyneth Paltrow being in Iron Man 2 and Iron Man 3 less might be to the detriment of the film in compared to Iron Man 1, because Iron Man 1 in my opinion, I know is years, but is considered widely the strongest of the trilogy.
Oh, it is not. I'm sorry, but it is the strongest.
Yeah, and a lot of that I think comes down to a lot of the screen time shared was between Terrence Howard and Robert Downey Jr. and especially Gwyneth Paltrow and Robert Downey Jr. And I think Pepper, as it went along, it really became the Iron Man movie, and she became very secondary than tertiary as the movies progressed. And except for Iron Man 3, I know she's in it a lot, but they don't have a lot of screen time together because he spends a lot with the little kid over Christmas. But do you think that like their natural chemistry and the fact that they weren't on screen together as much in the sequels might have actually affected the overall quality of the movies?
I just thought they had lesser stories and lesser villains. I mean, I just thought that the Whiplash was in the second film.
And the Mickey Rourke at the time.
Yeah, because we'd already covered that Iron Man had this like war kind of criminal past that he's trying to make amends for, and then somebody came.
But Stark Industries had it lot longer than he was alive, even
to punish him. And I get like it's not that it didn't make sense, but it just wasn't as enthralling. And the third film was just a clusterfuck. It was Shane
Black. He can't make movies.
Yeah, Shane Black.
It's like my rule of thumb. Don't let Shane Black make movies.
Do you remember the Mandarin just turned around to be
Trevor Stevens?
Yeah, just watching the Liverpool United game, drinking a beer. He's completely innocent. Oh God, that was so silly.
It was a bold move, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He actually said that he came up with the idea when he was going to the Jacks, to the toilet during writing. He was writing, he just went to the toilet, he was co-writing with someone, Shane Black, and he went to the toilet and came back and goes, what if the Mandarin's not the Mandarin? And then they came up with this twist, and that's how he came up with it. That's the effort he puts into his writing. It's like, hey, this character that has like 40 years of back catalogue of stories and lineage and legacy and a built-in fan base.
Football hooligan. I think a football hooligan.
Yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? I mean, I lapped it all up because of being the fan of Iron Man I am. But yeah, the hierarchy, I mean, that first one is fantastic. The second one was a bit, I mean, even though it's more showy and you get War Machine involved, which I quite liked, you know, the downfall of the best friend or the splitting apart of that relationship was a good kind of plot move. Obviously Nick Fury's in it as well, so it had its moments, but I think Whiplash, the thing about that was just the fight. It was just like, oh, okay, well, he's going to win now. So
yeah, exactly. I was like, what would it be a cool weapon? It's like electric whips, and they can cut through steel and stuff. And you're like, that would be visually intriguing, but it's not storytelling. Like, you know, it's not world building or anything. I just thought the first film did so much that the second film just tried to revisit, and it didn't need to. It needed to.
Do you think it's a case of in the first movie, because we had Jeff Bridges playing Oberle Stain, who's a brilliant man technically, so he became the cerebral villain and the soldier villain, whereas in part 2 you had the cerebral villain was played by Sam Rockwell, Justin Hammer. Yeah, and then you had the soldier villain was Whiplash, played by Mickey Rourke. And because the soldier villain, Sam Rockwell's portrayal was good, but it wasn't given enough screen time to be an effective cerebral villain. So a lot of the narrative ended up being lent onto the soldier villain. And because Mickey Rourke's character wasn't fully fleshed out, I think that may be why that suffered from a villain point of view. No, it wasn't really the actors. I just think the time that they allotted for each character, I think if they'd have fleshed them out more, and I think you might have had that better balance, you know.
But that's the thing. That's the balance that the first film had. And if you get the balance absolutely
because you had it with one character, though,
it's lightning in a bottle. It's very hard to recreate. Because even now, I think watching that film today, I think that's one of the best Marvel films.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
The very first one, I still think it's in my top 2.
Yeah,
probably.
It's definitely in my top 5 for sure.
Oh, you'd have to be in everyone's top 5. What about you, Ben? Where would you rate this now that we're we have the fullness of the 4 phases?
Yeah, 24, 25.
I mean, Endgame and Infinity War, just the emotional kind of connection, just the way they pulled off the montage, the very difficult 50 character montage, you know.
That took some doing.
That really did, yeah. So that kind of puts it into the top 3. But Iron Man is definitely the top 3 for me. And I think the other Iron Man films definitely top 7, top 8, something like that. But I would say top 5.
Well, Robert Downey Jr. is still great, though. You know,
exactly.
It's always going to get a few. Like if it's a 5-star film, it's always going to get 2 or 3 because Robert Downey Jr. was just that good.
Yeah, exactly. Just brings up our star. But I think, for instance, Civil War is one of my favorites as well. That's probably my 4th favorite. Again, montage, but also the introduction of Black Panther, the kind of the breakdown of Robert Downey Jr. and his kind of
rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Exactly.
Well, there's a lot of films, isn't it? God, they did so much so well. DC could learn so much. And you know what? This brings me back to Iron Man 1. This was such a solid foothold into world building. This is like now we have an Avenger, we have a genius, we have a philanthropist. He could be the money guy, he could be the tech guy, he could be an excellent central character, and we can just build it around him. And they did. He showed up at the end of the Hulk movie. Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I mean? I know that Captain America. Captain America, the first Avenger, but that was just. He comes into it in 2013, 2012. There's already
Captain America.
Yeah.
No, the first Avengers was 2011.
2011, yeah.
So Captain America would have been 2009, 2010, in around that time.
Was that right?
Yeah. They made most of their movies in the space of 3 or 4 year period or something like that.
That was the first phase.
That was the first phase, yeah. I think it was Iron Man came out on its own. I think the Hulk might have come out with Thor in the same year, maybe. No, with Iron Man 2, maybe. They're very close together, that first phase. Because Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk, and Thor, all those events are set within 1 week.
Really?
Yeah, within the Marvel Universe.
Storytelling.
I never knew that. Nice.
Yeah, there's some cool one shots. Marvel did. They don't really do them anymore, unfortunately. But they had these 7 or 8 minute short movies, and they were like connective tissue. Kind of like this is what's happening in between Iron Man and when Thor's hammer is found or something. And it did have a little conversation or whatever, and it was really cool. And it was a cool. They actually did it with Trevor Steven after the negative reaction to the Mandarin. They had a one shot, and it was just oh no, the real Mandarin exists. He's out there somewhere.
I've seen that one. I like that one. Again, far too comedy though. I think it's it was just. That's the problem with Iron Man 3. I think is because they leaned a little bit too hard into the comedy. Again, I love it. It's great. It's I like it as a Christmas film as well, and I like having a non-Christmas film to watch that's also a Christmas film.
Like Die Hard.
Exactly
like Die Hard. Yeah. So I think. going back to that question about the whole Gwyneth Paltrow kind of balance in it, I think because the plot line was the fact they were split apart after, a rocky start as well. Obviously, they're arguing throughout the first part of the film. Yeah. And kind of, Tony Stark's essentially falling apart. So I think, that was, I don't think the wrong move. I think it's a great story as it is, but I think, the kind of dynamism, I can never say that one, and the kind of chemistry between those two, especially as they progress to a relationship, is one of the best things about the kind of Iron Man films in general. And so I think, her being, dragged apart and also used as the kind of device, not to, diminish her at all, but, to be used as a device that kind of Robbie Stark, what am I doing now? Tony Stark has to then, save and, be the hero, etc. I think
damsel in distress.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just an unfortunate kind of fallout from that choice. But otherwise, I think it definitely wasn't. I guess definitely not the worst Marvel film, if there is one. I haven't seen Eternals yet, and I hear mixed things about that.
I reserve judgment as well.
I go see it soon. I can't read.
Yeah, I might try and see it tonight or something.
You have to bear me, Ben, don't you bastard?
I think the cool thing about Gwyneth Paltrow as well is that they didn't get bogged down in a love story. I hate when something tries to take up a lot of screen. Like Spider-Man 3 was such a rushed film, but it still had so much Mary Jane, and she was singing songs.
Are we still talking about love stories? Don't we? In Spider-Man 3, you're like, we know their story. Yeah, get fucking on with the cool stuff. You know what I mean?
But this one, their chemistry was so organic. The fact that it became something more as the films went on, that felt organic. But they never tried to shove it into the central role, because it's a superhero movie. We want to see Iron Man taking out of planes and all of that.
I like the way though she's like his sidekick in Iron Man 1, like the way Gwen Stacy is in Amazing Spider-Man 1, and then she becomes, like Ben said, she becomes more like a damsel in distress later on, a plot device. And then when a character becomes a plot device, they get less and less fleshed out as the series or the world grows, because all they are is that plot device instead of being a fully fleshed out character anymore, and that character becomes diminished when you have all these other characters that are being fleshed out through all these movies, and you're just a plot device that we're just going to bring in for Tony Stark to save. And I think it really diminished Pepper Potts as the movies went on, because she became a plot device and he was getting all this backstory, all this mythos build up, all this fleshing out, and she was just like became first a primary, then secondary, then tertiary character. And even in part 3, I know she plays a quite big role in terms of the narrative, but her character's never really fleshed out. She's like, Iron Man saves her in Malibu in the house, then later on she shows up and saves him in his suit, but there's not really anything there for us to kind of hold on to, because from majority of the movie she's kidnapped. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like that kind of thing, whereas if you keep fleshing out characters around a character that gets less and less of a role, that character actually even looks more diminished than even it actually has become, because all these other characters are so well developed, And I think that's Pepper Potts, what happened to her throughout the trilogy.
So she gets ultimately, that's the thing, they circle everything around really, really well.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, she's right there, like, with the Infinity Gauntlet, and everyone's fighting it out, and Spider-Man has it.
Sisters are doing it for themselves. Yeah.
But she moved away from the damsel narrative, because the character definitely deserved more.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing how Marvel
definitely did a hard kind of like hard turn at the end when she obviously had the Mandarin powers, or the the heat powers that they had.
The extremists.
I thought, they kind of just reversed it. Extremists, that's it, and they just reversed at the end and just made her actually the savior of Iron Man, which is kind of interesting. But talking about that. Sorry, I was going to say, talking about the her part in Avengers, Infinity War, she should have been, or at least in Endgame, there should have been a lot more of her, because she's basically like, hi, I'm here, they can stay for dinner or something like that, and then it's like, oh, did you invent time travel? Well, great. Then appears at the end. I would have loved just like an extra 5-10 minutes. They had it spare. Come on, they could have tied up. And just figure out like, cool. Well, let's give her a section where she's like kind of leading the charge, maybe, and just suddenly time to suit up, and give her one of the scenes where the revolving camera shot around the suit coming together, which is just the money shot of any MCU film.
Which is best portrayed in Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, where we got to see the nipples and Batman's butt.
Oh god! The twin bulges. I mean,
cod pieces.
That's it. MCU doesn't fuck around with camel toe and leather nipples. That's the problem with DC.
Marvel Comics Universe.
That's it. I tell you what, I am excited very much for the new. I know, because the problem with Batman, veering into DC for a second, is there's just been so many reboots. I mean, to the point, so many actors, it's like James Bond now.
Yeah.
And it's becoming a bit of a joke, like, oh, who's going to play it next? And I can see, another reboot after this. I don't think Spider-Man's quite grazing that level yet, because they've done pretty well. I quite like the three kind of Spider-Man actors that have been chosen, even Tobey Maguire when he goes a bit emo. But, the
trigger fingers.
Oh God! But the new, Robert Pattinson Batman, I feel from the trailer might have a bit of the new Joker, which I really, really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that portrayal, and the kind of the lack of superhero-ness in the film. Yeah. And even though this one, I think even like his Batmobile is just a stripped back sort of like American muscle car with a jet engine on the back of it. I'm like, yes, I'll take that.
Yeah, I actually feel the same. Yeah. I was a bit like you because like right now with Batman's, for example, that's why I actually don't think you can do Iron Man again, because Tony Stark can't be best. But we've had 5, maybe 6 in my lifetime. We just but like they didn't feel organic when they jumped. I mean, Val Kilmer just jumped in and after Michael Keaton, and then straight away we got into George Clooney, and then like Christian Bale came in, and then Batfleck. That was kind of a bit of a mess, and now we're onto this, and then like with some other things, with at least with Spider-Man, like there was 3 films, the third one was a dud, it was time to move on. Andrew Garfield, good film, second one bit of a dud, and then they were like, we want to put this into the main Marvel universe, so they came in with another one. It felt organic, like it felt like there was a point. This one, giving it over to Pattinson, I felt like rushed, but then I seen the trailer and now I'm thinking, yeah, I actually really want to see this movie.
Did you go around for like 2 days going, I am vengeance?
That's it. Yeah. It's always the voice though. Why did Christian Bale invent that voice? Because Michael Keaton didn't have that voice.
I always speak like this, Ben. I don't know what you mean.
The whole thing was about
naturally gravelly and gruff. That's who I am.
He didn't hang around with a lot of people. He kept Bruce Wayne quite, this, and when he showed up, anyone that heard his voice, they go, remember he killed people. Remember there was one guy in the second Batman, one that with the penguin. He sticks it. The man comes out with dynamite and he just punches him in the chest, and throws him down a flight of stairs. And just blows up. He heard his voice, but he was dead straight away. That's why people don't know about Batman.
Is it called a voice modifier?
Yeah, that's what
is that what they call it?
Yeah.
In Arrow, the CW's version of Arrow, a lot of the times when he's speaking to people and he wants to disguise his voice, he just wears one of them.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Why doesn't Batman have one of them built into his suit?
Yeah.
Like, if fucking Ghostface from Scream can distort his voice, so why can't Batman, this billionaire genius,
in 1996, he was able to destroy this?
You know what I mean, though? Like, I never understood that about Batman's like, and like, if you have a face or have a cowl, why show any of your face?
Yeah.
Like, cover all of it, and you could be any race. Like, if you don't show that part of your face, you could be any race.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if you had the voice distorter, you can literally change your accent every single time you speak to someone. Like, I'm a way better Batman than Bruce Wayne, it seems.
People would lose their shit if they fucking if they covered Batman's. Actually, that was not the other interesting about Iron Man. At the end of it, like there is no distinction really between Tony Stark and Iron Man, unlike almost every other superhero that we've touched upon.
Yeah,
like at the end, he's even like, the truth is, I am Iron Man. The truth, like,
ad-libbed line as well.
Yeah, ad-libbed.
Oh, really? Yeah,
ad-libbed line.
Yeah, and Kevin at the end was like, we'll go with that one. And they also explained it as a dream sequence as well, to keep this the whole cast like completely in the dark. Really? They were like, they were filming a dream sequence that's like halfway in between the film and stuff like that, and then that's the ending. So I didn't think anything. And when he sat there with the paper, this is another one I read. I was kind of looking at IMDb again this morning. The bit where he's looking at the paper where it's like Iron Man is a grainy photo on the front of on the newspaper he's holding while he's kind of like at the news conference. I think it's at the end. That grainy photo was a leaked video found on YouTube of the filming and the film set. So they used some people snuck in the bushes and took some like early filming pictures of it. So like, all right, we'll use that. I was like, nice little touches, which I hope like Kevin or John Favreau are behind.
Yeah, it is nice.
That's Marvel.
Troll your trolls,
Yeah, Marvel are
troll the trolls. Going back to the DC bit, sorry, the Batman thing. You're talking about the voice change or like.
I don't know what you mean, Ben.
I think it's that bit in. They try and like do it with Batfleck. I remember the scene I can't remember whether it's Justice League or Batman v Superman or some bit where Alfred's just like adjusting his voice changer, and you can hear him just sort of like testing it out, and all it does is just deepen his voice. I'm like, exactly, why don't you just change it to non-Affleck?
Like anything.
Like, yes, there it is. That's good. Thank you, Alfred.
Yeah. It's like, look at Scream 4 and what's her name? Julia Roberts' niece. What's her name?
Emma Roberts.
Sorry, yeah. And Emma Roberts is in that movie. And if Spider 1, 2, 3, if anyone hasn't seen Scream 4, but Emma Roberts is one of the killers in it, and she's a small woman, and she's able to make her voice sound exactly like a man's by using one of these distorters. That's the range these machines have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Batman's like, it's like Ben says, like, yeah, that's okay. It's like, dude, you sound exactly like that, except 2 tones higher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's like
the actor wants to sound like the actor or something. You know, like they need to get themselves in there. It's like, remember Judge Dredd, Sylvester Stallone was like, yeah, I'm not wearing a helmet. And they're like, dude, in the entirety of the Judge Dredd comic, he's never taken off the helmet. I read a Judge Dredd comic where he gets attacked when he's in the bath with his helmet on. He doesn't take off the helmet.
Dredd's commitment.
That's Judge Dredd's commitment.
It's like he's hearing it.
He's one of my favourites. Like,
same as, yeah.
Carl Urban's portrayal is amazing.
I was going to say, I did not know it was Carl Urban. I don't know why. I just like, I somehow missed the launch fest, saw the trailer and stuff like that. I was like, this looks really cool. As bloody as it should be. And then I just saw it on like I don't know, like box office at home. And I was just like, is that? My God, it is Carl Urban, because it's like he curls his lip in a way that like completely masks his white beardless face, Batman face. And then just like talks in a different accent.
He took on the role of Judge Dredd and whatever it took to be Judge Dredd. And
he's a massive fan of the source material, the graphic novel itself, and he said that he would not take the part if they made him take off the helmet.
Excellent.
And Alex Garland, the guy who wrote it, I think he directed it too. He's actually a massive fan of the source material as well, and that's what he said. He wanted an actor that was willing and knew and like appreciated the source material and understood that you're not playing anyone but Judge Dredd. Yeah. It's not Carl Urban. You're Judge Dredd. It's not an actor anymore. You're the faceless moniker or whatever of justice. And if you keep taking off that fucking mask, you're not so faceless. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I remember reading those
you're not judge. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember reading those comics.
I'm law.
He goes to a place where he's like, he 76-hour shift, and he'd go and he'd get like hyper sleep in a machine for like 8 minutes, which does 8 hours or 9 hours, and then he was just back out on the beat. So like Judge Dredd, again, like it's funny, Iron Man, he just puts on a suit. He's Tony Stark with a suit or without a suit. But Judge Dredd,
what's he without his suit?
Is Judge Dredd. There's no
billionaire played by philanthropist.
He's never had a name. He's never had anything. He's just always Judge Dredd. I always
love
like
that kind of
and they did. That's the thing. They did Iron Man right. I think that's the thing we have to appreciate the most. That's what Iron Man should have been. Yeah. A flawed, brilliant man, and who's a hero at heart. Judge Dredd is he is the law, as he likes to say, and that's what you get.
I'm the law. We'll just end up titling this episode "I'm the Law," and nobody will have a fucking clue. They're like, "What? Right, so they got Ben Galley on to talk about Iron Man. Why is it called "I'm the Law"?
Judge Dredd.
Yeah, it's like 15 minutes just like "I'm the Law."
You should just name it Carl Urban. Just the episode.
Just the fuck.
As far as I'm concerned, that man is like a god amongst other actors. Because I mean, A, Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
B, he was in like was that Riddick film, Chronicles of Riddick, which I thought he was a great villain. Judge Dredd, he's the Boys was fantastic. It's so good. I think he's fantastic. He's a brilliant actor.
Dude, he got the best. That was a fairly stupid film, but that scene where it went full POV.
Amazing.
That was just excellent.
That was when The Rock still played characters, not The Rock. It was interesting.
That was cinema at its finest.
But all of us sitting here, we all know Iron Man, the source material, and one thing we know is Iron Man was like a product of its time, and I mean its initial time, and I mean like the 60s, 70s era where America...
67 was it, yeah.
Yeah, and this guy pulling out exact dates. Show me up my own show, motherfucker. Ben's like 1967, August 12th, issue 1, no biggie, I don't know anything. But so it was like a product of its time initially, and I mean like in that era of the Vietnam War, and that's where Tony Stark's origins came from. Initially, he got hurt in the Vietnam War. He went over there. And the reason I'm bringing up this point is I think what Iron Man has done and what MCU and Marvel have done very successfully is modernize their characters and bring them into the world we know today. And,
while staying true to some.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in place of Tony Stark getting injured in Vietnam, he gets injured in Afghanistan, because at the time America was like knees deep in Afghanistan. Well, kind of still are. I just thought, like, when you have that kind of gift or talent for modernization of the characters, it kind of lends itself well for expansion. And like, what did you think of the way Marvel went and modernized Tony Stark and used the Afghanistani war as a modern placement for the Vietnam War?
I think it was great. I think the modernization is great, because I mean, yes, you could do like a more period piece, like for instance, X-Men. Days of Future Past and things like that. Fantastic.
On First Class as well.
And First Class, yeah. I just love that.
Wolverine Origins.
Comes out of the water.
Terrible film, but remember the intro?
Terrible film.
It went through his life.
Yeah.
And it was him fighting
him and Liev Schreiber.
The Confederacy right up to Vietnam. And
that's it.
That was cool.
Isn't the issue though of something we talked about recently is time in the franchise out of existence. It's like when you keep incorporating the source material or its original time frame or time period it was set. And so, like, I think isn't it like it's such an important thing to be to modernize, because if you go and put Tony Stark back in its initial time period of the Vietnam War, immediately if you modernize the story, you age that character out of existence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, you could take Wolverine all the way back to like
he's
the Wild West, or more or less, I would probably call it the Weird West.
Yeah, quite know that. I've never heard that before.
Patent pending.
I've never heard that before, Noel. Ben, do you want to hear more about the Weird West? Noel, elaborate.
So, sorry, we actually didn't let Ben answer the question. I think I jumped on it because I need to move.
Yeah. You're excited, you can't help yourself. That's what we do.
Yeah, this is what's great about this. Yeah, it's a lovely conversation. No, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, the modernization. Yeah, so I think you're right. It would have lost the viewership, and I think it would have kind of aged out the character as well. And it's sort of, Marvel had done that or had it in mind, with the first Avenger, Captain America. We're going to do a war piece, which isn't everyone's cup of tea.
And starting out, you can freeze him and just bring him to the present day.
Exactly.
Then,
yeah. Exactly.
And there's always a war, like there is. The fact of the matter is, if it is a war story, or if it starts as a war story, unfortunately there's basically no time you could go to and not say, right, we can this is within this time period. Afghanistan.
Then they kind of get their cake and eat it too with the Ant-Man character, because you have two iterations of the character known and loved. You have Hank Pym and you have Scott, what's his surname?
Lang.
Scott Lang, sorry. And that way you can incorporate the original character source material from the source material.
That quite well.
Yeah, exactly. And you can have him be an old, gruff, experienced that man that's been there and done that. And you get Michael Douglas. And now we still have the modernistic interpretation with Scott Lang. And like Captain America is obviously the kind of like the golden goose, because you can have him be in his original source material, as we mentioned a second ago. You can freeze him, and now suddenly he's in present day, and then you get both those kind of aspects of the story. I think that's what you kind of get lucky sometimes with characters. But like, I think with Iron Man, you kind of had to modernize it, because if you age out Robert Downey Jr. and you lose that initial linchpin as the universe expands, it would have been to the detriment,
Yeah, I think it would also have been difficult with the technology as well, because I mean, it's a fusion reactor, let's be honest, like the arc reactor. So with the idea of like that, I mean, it's been around since late 90s, fusion or something. Jet reactor in the UK. And so with that, I think it's like kind of they had to narrow it down quite a lot. And so I think it's also kind of interesting how they do start with Afghanistan, because they could have kind of omitted that and done it in a different way. But I think they kind of not Americanized it, but tugged at maybe more American heartstrings. And to be honest, UK, Canada, and Australia as well. Anyone with troops in there, but the whole kind of seeing troops being blown up and troops being shot down outside of their own Humvees and stuff like that in an ambush, and it was kind of like it's very close to home for a lot of people. So I think there was maybe a wise decision, I think, from the direction, just to be like, right, we're going to not tug at this heartstring for no reason, but we're going to say, right, this is the situation that's happening. So it's very real. It's it's very emotional and straight in. It's a powerful relevant opening. Yeah, exactly.
They took steps not to demonize all Afghanistanis, all Afghanistan people. To be fair, as well, like I'm sure somebody from Afghanistan might feel differently.
All I know is I'm going to travel in the Humvee and not the Fun V. That's all I know. I'm going with James Roddy Rhodes.
Next time you ride with me.
Him showing up in the village.
Yeah, well, they made that a very big point, didn't they? In the fact that they said the 10 rings, essentially, rather when they captured, and the fact that the general, I forget his name, but he's speaking Hungarian, for example. He's not speaking, and he, even Jessen lays out all the different languages and all the different people that are here. So yeah, they are very careful to do that. Aren't they? From the off, like, no, we are not demonizing anyone. This isn't the classic like terrorist storyline.
Do you think, looking forward, or like, with the information that we now have and looking back, do you think that we saw a bit of a retcon from Marvel? Because, like, not just with Trevor Stevens' interpretation of the Mandarin or the fake Mandarin, but ended up being Guy Pearce's character, but like they seemed like they were going to route the 10 rings instead of having them set in what we know from the Mandarin being Asian from Chinese descent. Obviously it's in the name, so but like, that kind of seemed like they were going with a more terrorist kind of like paramilitary, like, I know this was pre-ISIS, but it seemed like they were going in a more Middle Eastern, like the 10 Rings and the Mandarin were more like, okay, what's our main threat of the time in America, or as I mentioned, are knee deep in the Middle East at the moment and have been for like 20 years now. But like, and then you look at it and they go, it seems like Marvel are going to bring the 10 Rings, making it more of a terrorist organization, and then the Mandarin was going to come from their kind of ranks. And then later on, it seems that like they've kind of, I don't want to say overcorrected, because what they did was they went back to what the source material initially was. But do you think there was a retcon there that we saw, like Tony Leung played the Mandarin in Shang-Chi, and now that it seems like initially they were setting up for him to be like a paramilitary type of flags with no, nation, a flag is a nation with no flag, is that what they say, or like kind of like the flag smashers in Captain. So what did you think? Do you think there was a retcon that occurred there, or give it to Ben?
I think so. I think they basically, for instance, talking about how that was kind of like a last minute twist to have, the Mandarin not be the Mandarin. Yeah. I think that might have just been like someone in some, high floor of a tower watched that and was like, for God's sake, this is not what we planned. Now we've got to produce a one shot in prison and just have Justin Hammer in there for the funsies and just switch this round so we can do Shang-Chi. I think it was a big retcon like they've done with the comics. They did it well. If not, then I think, maybe Iron Man left it just kind of wide open, kind of Jon Favreau and Kevin just got given. I always want to say Feige, and I've been just saying Feige for years. I might say it wrong. I know.
He said Feige. It's driving me mad to get it right as well. But at least they listen to their fans.
K-Dog.
They did.
But listen to the fans, and also fans don't get to make the films, so fans shouldn't get like necessarily a seat at the table when you kind of listen to the fans, kind of go, you know what, I think they're right. I don't think that was probably a big mistake, but the fact that they, even 10 years later, that they'll actually try and do a correction, that counts for something. It's another
something we mentioned on the Shang-Chi episode we recorded, like they have been trying to recorrect that error for the better part of a decade, and like, even though Iron Man was to Iron Man's detriment not having a real Mandarin, I think it really was beneficial to Shang-Chi in the long run. Because, as I mentioned to you, I don't have a clue who Shang-Chi was. I didn't know much about the character. But you attach a Mandarin to him as his villain. I'm going to go see that fucking movie now, because I want to see the Mandarin as much as I want to see Shang-Chi,
10 Rings are talking about in the 2008.
It goes again with Marvel, good planning plus luck. And that's where you get the MCU, like,
Because it works. I mean, it's conceivable, isn't it, that, for instance, Raza and, Obadiah Stane, not obviously part of the 10 Rings, but was negotiating with a cell of the 10 Rings that happened to be based in Afghanistan, and then therefore they had their symbol maybe slightly Middle Easternized, like it was used in Iron Man 3, and then actually obviously then it kind of does work with the one shot, like it all falls into place. The Guy Pearce had just stolen the idea, he'd found it somewhere in his research, or heard the story of the true Mandarin, stolen it, and then the one shot just like cleans it up. And so maybe if it wasn't planned, then it's a brilliant retcon. If it was planned, then fair play.
I think it was just like genius backwriting. Do you know that kind of way? Like, do you know when you're writing something and you come up with this idea and you're like, oh shit, I may develop this somewhere, and then you're like, you go back earlier on in your story and then you find this little nook and cranny in the story that you can develop something real quick. You're like, got you, motherfucker. That kind of. And I think Marvel are probably like, you got so many people there and they know the source material so well, and I think they were like, oops, we made a mistake. We just picked up a whole bouquet of whoopsie daisies.
We fucked it up again. Just one guy in a basement with thousands of pages everywhere going,
just like, get Sir Ben on the phone, we need him for 8 minutes. But
bring me the bones of Stan Lee.
Jesus Christ.
R.I.P. Because what was the other little thing they put in? They put Roxxon Corporation into. It was on a building at some point in the Ironmonger fight at the end.
I think it was on a truck as well. I think.
Or something, I think it was that, and then that was kind of just left. So I think they were just like, okay, we'll put 10 rings in, because Mandarin always was the badass against Iron Man. Source material, and so I think, right, we'll do the 10 rings just to if we do want to do Mandarin properly in the third one, we can do it, and then we'll put in rocks on just in case of that, and then we'll go with Hammer Tech in the second one. I think it was maybe just. We'll put these Easter eggs in just in case we need them. Yeah. And if we don't need them, they're fun Easter eggs.
Yeah, so what? Yeah, because that's it. Because people just like them. Yeah. I noticed in Aquaman, when they're going down into the sea, there's an Annabelle doll. Just an Annabelle doll. Yeah, he was saying it was the same director.
Oh, James Wan, James Wan, same director.
So I was just, honest to God, they just kind of do a pullback shot, and of course Aquaman's diving like a rocket, and then you just see an Annabelle doll, and I was going, a fucking Annabelle doll, that one.
Where's this film going?
An Annabelle Aquaman crossover. You know what? Yes.
Yeah, I'm there for it. I wasn't expecting, but I'm there for it.
I should not be, but yes,
I really want to see the fight scene with Jason Momoa and an evil doll. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That'd be brilliant. But if we said Jason Bourne, and we'd have another crossover. Said Jason Momoa.
But Ben, before we go to the break, I wanted to ask you one more question. And we went through all the modernizations, the interpretations of the different characters, and what way the movie played out, and how it affected the greater universe. But I want to ask you, the shit I'm really always interested in is the suit. It's something I always bring up in these super. It's what did you think of first the Mark 1 and then the Mark 2, and what did you think of those suits in comparison to later suits and shit like that? And because that's where I love talking about suits. I'm always talking about suits and power sets. Yeah. But so Ben, what did you think of the suit he made in the Afghanistani cave, and then obviously the one we got to see the initial real Iron Man suit and the hot rod red and gold.
Oh, the real one. Yeah. I think it was. That first one's great, and it's
so clunky, steampunk.
It's steampunk, isn't it? It's just it looks like it should be powered, by either steam or just diesel dripping out.
Yeah, some guy shoving coal into the back of the suit or some shit.
Yeah, just Jensen behind him, just furiously shoving by the Titanic. I think it was great, and it was obviously just a testament to Tony Stark's their skills and stuff. So I was just yes, it's kind of a heart back to the cartoons, or even just the original Iron Man comics and stuff. It looked 60s and 70s. It looked like an old diving suit mixed with someone's envisioning of an astronaut. I don't know.
That's it. 1950s envisioning of what an alien stepping off might be. It would be wearing this big mechanite suit. I love it.
I love the way people in the 50s never thought clothes were going to get smaller through time. No. They're we wear deep sea diving suits now. They're just going to have shinier deep sea diving suits in 50 years.
I am Mr. Submarine. It's like a transformer or something. I think it was great to nod to that, and they're always doing that, aren't they? In terms of just because one of the great reasons I think Iron Man stands out is because it's probably the best done origin story. Before origin stories got a bit let's get this out of the way and let's get to
reading my mind, I was literally thinking that because you're an hour in, and that's when he starts building the Iron Man suit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a real true blue origin story. I was thinking that earlier. I was we don't get them anymore.
It just didn't. Yeah. It didn't hold itself up. You were entertained.
Yeah, exactly. It was just motherfuckers, we're going to take as much time as we need.
Yeah.
Especially
Iron Man.
You will sit there and enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Not loser falls after the girl bit by a spider, wakes up, doesn't understand, figures it out halfway during the day, he's Spider-Man. It's not that. There's so much Iron Man. Yeah. Because he's self-made, he's a genius, and he just realizes he's a genius.
And one thing I love the way about at the start as well, the way they set it up, because they explain his entire role in the world by a narration of an award show. They're just this is Tony Stark, and his father has happened. He's a genius, and he took over. Prodigal son returned. And it's just okay, now this is where his role in the world is. Now we're going to show you the world that he lives in.
Yes,
and they took the time really well.
Narrative cheat code. It was so good.
I love him to do that. It's just okay, here's the boring shit. Now here's the exciting shit. We're going to take our time fleshing out the real cool stuff.
Yeah,
but But so before we go to the break, Noel, what's your thoughts on the suits? And Ben, before I ask Noel that, what did you make of the Mark II in comparison to the suitcase suit we saw in Iron Man 2?
I was going to talk about that one.
The nanobot suit, is it? Nanobots, is it?
Yeah, it's the nanobots in the final.
Yeah, and what did you make of the sheer difference between the very grounded, realistic approach they took with the initial Iron Man suit and compared to how it's evolved over the movies?
Yeah, the first moment, because I'm not going to lie, the series that I started off with writing, the Emaneska series, let's just say there's some red and gold armor that has to be collected through the series, and it's very medieval, but it's got a wolf on the front of it and a snarling face on the thing. So it's not Iron Man, but it's kind of Iron Man. I'm not going to lie.
It's got a smidge
of iron.
It's got a smidge of the iron in him. I got a smidge.
Yeah. I like it.
Would you ask? No worries.
What's his name? Sony Tark.
Oh, that would be hilarious, man. I wish I'd done that now, just for the fun of it. But yes, it's always about the suit. Yes, Iron Man says, or Tony Stark says it as the characters, I am Iron Man, but the suit is me, and vice versa later on, when he's in the courtroom in Iron Man 2. And so, yeah, because you see the silver one, you're like, the kind of Mark 0.5 or 1.5 rather, where it's awesome. Just that pure silver one he takes out for the test drive, and obviously there's the ice problem that is the callback later on. When he's angry and you've been like, I want to see the suit. It's been an hour. Why give me the suit? And John Favreau gives you the suit.
Isn't it like in Iron Man 3? You've got a shit ton of Iron Man suits, but very little Iron Man.
Yeah, yes. Very true. I think you've got to strip it back. I literally did that in my most recent book. This character has, after 6-7 books into the series, or 2 series split, Farden kind of loses the armor and loses the power of the armor, and I do an Iron Man 3 because you got to build him up, take it down, all that sort of stuff. It's kind of maybe it was just too logical a kind of maneuver for Iron Man 3, going back to that point. But anyway, that I literally just watched it before this, where it's the slow kind of camera starting at the feet, rising up, but also spiraling around a little bit. It does that on the silver one, but then as Tony's angry as hell, and he just does the slow eye rise just as the camera kind of comes up, almost I'm just like, come on, that's cinema. And it's just CGI to fuck. All little bits moving, everything moving. It's it's perfect. And then obviously that is the money shot.
And
sorry, after you.
No, I was going to say, as soon as you see them in the leotard now, you're like, oh shit, I know that suit's not real. It's kind of the suit felt more real in the first two.
When he shows up in the village of Afghanistan, and I like the fact that it was in the comics, were always the invincible Iron Man. And the thing is, he was a bit clunky. He was a bit like the original RoboCop. But he shot this guy, he turned around, punched this guy. But he wasn't Spider-Man. That's not his power set. He's not Daredevil. Exactly. That's not his power set. Batman, any of these guys. I like the fact there was a little bit of clunkiness to it. I kind of like that. He got a little bit gymnasticy as the suits went on. Yeah. Remember when he's fighting Thanos? It's he falls, he's knocked on his back, but then he's ejected straight back up, and his hands start to hammers, and it's cool and it's absolutely awesome. But I kind of liked the clunk, I have to say.
Yeah,
I just like that because he's invincible. Really well. He doesn't need to be jumping around the place because you're shooting him, and it does not matter.
Like you said, he's not Spider-Man. Yeah.
Exactly.
But he's not Spider-Man.
Yeah,
he's made of iron. So where
just walks towards the bullet fire.
The advantage that such a guy would have over such a guy would be speed, power sets. Yeah. This guy's faster than this guy's supposed to be. The Flash is a lot weaker than Superman, but when he's running at the speed of light and he hits him a punch, it does an awful lot of damage.
Yeah, and he's the Flash is the fastest person alive.
The Flash is the fastest. Yeah,
until the new season comes out with the Flash.
Yeah,
it's like, I'm Barry Allen, the fastest man alive. No, you're not, Barry. Because I know in 2 episodes there's going to be a faster fucking guy than you, Barry. You son of a bitch, Barry. Every time, every season.
Let's go to this break.
All right, cool. We go to the break, Ben, and then we come back, and I'm going to ask you, what if, and that's this, what if you were the director, what would you have changed about Iron Man? That one thing, if anything. And then we go with the best and worst, and you tell me the best thing you thought about the Iron Man experience and the worst thing you thought about.
This will be a quick
this normally takes only about 20 minutes to half an hour tops. And so this is Dark Side of the Moon. Nearly said Invasion of the Body Snatchers again. Fucking hell, man, I'm conditioned after October, so many episodes. But so this is Dark Side of the Moon, and we got Ben Galley. We'll be back right after the break, and now a word from our sponsors.
I know that you've all been prepared for this, but I thought I'd just mind you just the same.
Can you handle that, Blondie?
Game over, man. Game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
It was pure evil.
I want to buy some radio ad time.
Welcome back from the break. This is Dark Side of the Moon, and we're here with Ben Galley. And Ben, before we went to the break, we were talking about Iron Man. We went back to the start of the MCU and we broke down all the different things and the different, the different kind of like pieces of fabric that kind of weave together and made the Iron Man experience what it was. But like to put us as fans, we like to put ourselves in the director's chair from time to time, like they say the Monday morning quarterback, they like to say in America, and we like say over in here like the Monday morning manager or whatever. But like when you look at Iron Man, and like the thing is, you, as a fan, you like to hypothesize, or is that right? I think I did. We'll go with it. I have a very loose grasp on the English language, and I like to say fancy words. Sometimes I'm not sure if I'm using them in the right context. But like we like to put ourselves we like to put ourselves in the director's chair, and like in this section we call it what if we were the director of Iron Man instead of in place of Jon Favreau, what we would have done differently. And Ben, when you look back over the Iron Man experience, what thing would you have changed, or what thing would you like to see done differently or altered, or what characters would you like to see introduced that weren't, or given more screen time and such?
I'd have liked to seen, I mean, it's very difficult because I wouldn't have changed a lot. It is like if we said, you know, one of the top Marvel films. It is a fantastic origin story. And I think, again, like kind of the entry and the portrayal of Tony Stark is brilliant. So I probably wouldn't have changed any of the characters. I might have taken Don Cheadle, actually.
At least you would have had a constant, you know, you wouldn't have had the... it would have been constant all the way through.
It would have suited my OCD.
Yeah.
It's like when you get a sequel and like either the publisher's logo is like an inch higher than the other ones, or it's like a slightly larger size. And you're like, God damn it! No, you've ruined my show.
It's like, I hate change.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely loathe it. Yeah. But otherwise, I'm trying to think. I think. I might have kind of I would have pushed the timing of it. I think, you know, they were trying to make a solid kind of, you know, hour and a half, was it? Yeah, literally almost an hour and a half, isn't it? You know, hour and a half film, something like that. Or is it slightly longer?
No, I think it runs like 218, I think.
Oh, does it? Oh, sweet. There you go. I'd have made it like maybe 225, 230. And I just could have like basically just spent maybe a little more time on Obadiah just to kind of get the kind of depth of his betrayal a little bit more.
Get more than Lex Luthor vibe.
Kind of lengthened. That's it. I would have lengthened the fight, I think, as well. I would have kind of made that something that's way more of a struggle. And it's sort of Iron Man really kind of graduating. You know, it's also like even though he's like kind of near death, but I want him more near death.
Because
so
you need overcoming the odds. You need overcoming the odds.
I thought it was amazing how much power you got from 7% battery life. That's all I'm saying. Like anybody that's had a phone, my phone gets to 7%. My phone's like, I'm out. I'm like, but you had 7%. My phone's like, I'm out, dude. I'm like, but where's the other 6%? My phone's like, I'm out. It's like, come on. I just when I was watching that back today, I was like, oh my god, how is he running that suit on 7% power? It makes no sense to me.
No.
Absolutely. Oh man, but otherwise, I mean, the thing is, I wouldn't change very little. I think. Am I answering best parts and worst parts yet, or is that what it is?
No. That's the last thing. No, just what would you change?
I mean, I think the best parts for me, and I think that the bits I absolutely wouldn't change, is the fact that they just laid out, you know, again, this is probably down to Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. as well, but the character of Tony Stark himself. And there's a line from it, which is, I'm going to try and get right. It's the bit where he's showing off the Jericho missile. And he says something along the lines of, my father always said, peace only comes if you've got, I'm going to mix it with the biggest stick. He said, I had the quote.
He says, they say that the best weapon is the weapon you never have to fire. But I say that the best weapon you have to fire once. The only weapon you have to fire once. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So there's so there's another quote where he talks about his father. It's like, my father always said something like, peace is about having the biggest stick. I think that's the previous one, and that is the whole driving factor all the way through the films. Anyone that Tony Stark is in, or even the ones that like he has an effect on, even the Spider-Man films and things like that after he's gone, it's all about the biggest weapon. That's why he keeps driving himself almost to insanity in Iron Man 3. That's why he creates, the nano suit and thinks, he wants to armor around the world in Civil War. Ultron, exactly.
The gauntlet that made everything was so redundant. Once this gauntlet came into play, everything was so redundant against
wasn't the quote about his father, wasn't that kind of nearly paraphrasing? Was it Frederick Delano Roosevelt? Is that his name?
Right, FDR.
FDR. But wasn't his famous quote, wasn't it? It's like, speak softly, but carry a big stick or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's one thing that just, we talk about forward planning and not having to retcon much at all.
Yeah.
They nailed that was nailed from day one, film one. It was like, right, this is going to be his arc, and it's perfect. I think it's stayed true to that all the way through, even when it's been like Iron Man 3.
Yeah, he's story arc reactor, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What would I say? Worst bits? I don't know. I find Raza pretty toothless in terms of. Yeah, I'm gonna be. Let's do it. I'm gonna put my editors down. That's it. Yeah, I'd say Raza is he's toothless as a villain or an initial villain that you think is going to be main villain. I know he's literally just like a kind of a step on the ladder for Obadiah Stane.
I thought he was going to be the Mandarin initially.
Yeah, I want him fierce. Exactly. Yeah, I thought he was going to be like someone high up in that. But I want him. Even though he did have that scene where he's kind of almost tortured Jensen. I want more. I want him fighting Obadiah. I don't know. Yeah, I'd figure that out later. Worst bits. I would say. It's really hard.
It's not a good sign. It should be a hard question.
But I'm sorry, Ben, the one rule over here at MDK is no fencing, motherfucker. That's like our one rule. We have very little rules.
I like it. Fuck it. I don't know. I would have made the suit blue and yellow. No, I'm joking.
I won't have it, Ben. I won't have it.
Fuck, I don't know. Yeah, I think the comedy was on the right edge. Maybe more. I suppose the montage of the building was kind of. He did leap pretty high or far from just basically like blowing himself into the wall and be like, I can fly in this kind of like skeleton boot thing that I've got to like here's a fully working silver one. So I think it could have been pretty funny, just kind of building that up a little bit, but it's definitely not the worst part. It's one of the best parts. I
love the way the movie's so good. You're looking for it's so good. He's looking for negatives and he's just highlighting more positives. That's how good the movie is. Like,
it's come full circle. I can't do it.
Sometimes like
damn it.
The opposite is like if you were to talk about Batman versus Superman, you kind of go like, what were the negatives, and you kind of just take this deep breath.
Have you got 15 more minutes?
Literally, we need another podcast for all the things I would change about all the DC films.
You know what?
Well,
you joke, but that is the kind of thing that we would probably end up doing.
It sounds like Ben just committed to another podcast.
It just sounds to me like
oh dear.
Now that we have you,
I think. Just record 2 back to back. But I think when, for instance, I love the Christian Bale ones, but there's a lot wrong with definitely the third one.
What do you mean,
Ben? Pretty good. Second one is second one's pretty fucking fantastic, to be honest. But either way, with that, I'd still have a lot more, even with those pretty damn good, probably the best DC films out there that at least I've seen. There's still a lot to change. Iron Man, I'm struggling.
Do you think the reason you'd have more to change when it comes to Batman, not because Batman has more flaws as a movie, but because it's more of a treasured source material to you personally?
It's interesting because Batman again was one of those cartoons. It was X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, and Iron Man with
the animated series.
It's brilliant.
I still watch it. I was only watching it a couple of months ago.
Yeah, I loved it, and I think it's great. That was kind of like the dawn. Well, not the dawn. I'm not that old. But the dawn of children's content, like Saturday morning TV, and it's like, you put on your Spider-Man, and stuff like that, and it was
Fox
obviously, was it not? That was it, and we had what's the other one I'm trying to think of? There was the Godzilla spin-off as well, the animated series.
With Godzuki.
That was fantastic.
Godzilla and Godzuki.
Yeah, that was fantastic. And then obviously with all the classic stuff, like things like Top Cat and Scooby-Doo. All of that.
Top Cat.
I love that. I want to go back.
Officer Dibble, wasn't it? Officer Dibble, wasn't it? But like
100%.
so
Yeah, I think that was piece of the source material that kind of really just like stuck with me. So Batman has always been a favorite, apart from the fact, like Iron Man has no problem with like killing people and just blasting people, into walls and stuff, or like putting a missile in a tank. And I think I prefer that because it's more of a flawed hero. He's like, Batman's like incredibly moral. He's definitely more kind of, along a different square on the alignment matrix. And so, I don't know. It's good. He's up there with my favorites. Christian Bale and the director Chris Nolan did fantastic job with it. Of course, Heath Ledger, R.I.P., best Joker ever.
And it was great when Chris Nolan made movies that were coherent as well. Chris Nolan's like, I'm going to invert the shit out of everything now. Are you, Chris? Can you give me a little bit more like coherent narrative structure? Like, and maybe don't call your main character the protagonist and call your villain the antagonist, because that's lazy as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's like, we'll get to it.
Draft somehow got sold.
We'll get back to it later. That's the kind of thing. But Noel, we heard.
I'll tell you what though, I love that fight scene in that film.
in
Tenet.
Tenet.
Yeah, the inverted fight scenes. Oh, so good. I need to watch it again, or like 3 times maybe to get a full kind of explanation of it.
I think you need to sit down.
You need to watch it with Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think that's your only goal.
Director's commentary on
it's like get him to explain what the fuck is going on.
What the fuck is this about?
Yeah, I get it's inverted, Chris, but like, come on, just give me a little bit more than that. Like, stop saying inverted and give me some context. You know what I mean? Like,
you should be blind. Exactly. Light should go out of your eyes. It's weird.
But so Noel, we heard what Ben thought would change, and he's sitting on the fence like a motherfucker. But and we heard what he loved about the movie. But so Noel, if you were in place of Jon Favreau, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed be thy name. But so you're in place of Jon Favreau. You're going to be he makes good shit, man. I just love good shit. You know what I mean? Like, but so what do you make of what would you change? Sorry, of in terms of the Iron Man story, and how would you like what was your best and worst of the Iron Man experience?
Well, I'd say if there was one thing to change, and it's a small thing, and again, it's to be nitpicky, I would have liked when he showed up, when he fought the enemies, I would have liked him to be, he does end up killing a lot of them, but I would have liked him to have
kill him
rage.
Dead.
I mean, real blood-curdling rage. I would have loved to see Iron Man in his absolute darkest coming out of that cave. Not charming, not like
not super tanned,
but like, I mean,
around kind of dark side.
I just thought that would have been a really good moment for darkness, and there was enough of levity through it that would have balanced it out. But like, again, that's to be nitpicky. I love this movie so much. I think the best, easily, Robert Downey Jr. and everything he touched. He was flawless in this film. The suit was awesome.
The casting.
He was excellent casting, and it was a difficult time for his personal life, and I think that helped a flawed man playing a flawed character.
It's like what Ben said earlier. It's like the reason he was chosen in the role is because he's that kind of dude that's lived as the party guy lifestyle. Yeah. He's been in
he is him.
Yeah, exactly. He is him. Yeah, exactly.
And that's why
he was an engineer.
Too,
he was a genius level engineer. And I think worst, again, you would be nitpicky, but I think I might just piggyback on the. Sorry, what was the name of the guy who was the leader of the Ten Rings?
Ben, you said his name. What was it?
Raza.
Raza as well. I think he should have struck a more evil tone, kind of like you said, that because like Obadiah, I loved his indifference. He was just like killing or not killing, whatever suited his purposes at the time, and I love that completely disconnected man of industry. He doesn't care about you. You're less than pawns to him.
He was like a Rockefeller or something.
Raza, he has all of the men shot, and he doesn't even look back. He's just going back to his helicopter or jet or whatever. And so I love that. I want to change a thing.
Technology has always been your people's weakness.
That's another great line. Every line he delivers well. But I would have liked Ten Rings to strike a darker tone. They see, like at the end of it all, they got taken out by Tony Stark and they got taken out by Obadiah. I think they just ended up being a bit of a goofy villain. Mid-range character, mid-range villain. I thought you could have done. You could have made it a bit darker, and it would have. You could have had Tony Stark a little bit angrier. But that's nitpicking. And the best is obviously Tony Stark, and the worst is that.
Yeah, and I think the main. What was your what if?
What if
Yeah, what would you change? Because you just gave me your best and worst.
Oh yeah, I was just saying I would have had him coming out at Kayla.
Join me on
that
the
was your what
fence.
if. Yeah. Two boys fence sitting. What the fuck, Noel? Jesus.
Right, you do it. You finish this off today.
All right, cool. Dirt. I do not agree to this. Hands above the belt lines, gentlemen. Yeah, what I would have changed was if I was the director, would have been I would have given Roddy a bit more screen time. I think the movie's long enough that the origin story, and I clocked it because when Ben mentioned that, like, it felt like a true origin movie, and it was about an hour before we got to see Iron Man in the Mark II suit. I think that could have been 45 to 48 minutes and give me about 10, 12 more minutes of Roddy.
Yeah.
And his relationship with Tony Stark. And I think the character would have benefited greatly, because we see with Don Cheadle later on, even though I feel that Terrence Howard's got a stronger portrayal of the character, that he's given a lot more screen time at times with Tony Stark, and we get to really see that relationship develop throughout the movies. And I think that we could have actually seen it develop a lot more from the get-go if you just given maybe them another 5 or 10 minutes screen time. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of like a 2-hour movie, it's pretty much like, I know, I'm shit maths. Was it like 1/20th of the overall time? Producer in my ear telling me I'm an idiot. But yeah, if I used to look back, I think Roddy could have done with a bit more screen time. I'm a big fan of Terrence Howard. Loved him in Hustle and Flow and Crash, like Ben mentioned earlier. And like, he's such a well-rounded character actor, same as Robert Downey Jr. And that's why they played so well. You had two very strong character actors playing, having a lot of fun with the role. And I just think their chemistry, just like Pepper Potts' chemistry with Tony Stark, is one of the major strengths and major backbone of the entire movie. And it just would have even strengthened the movie even more. And we maybe got to the Mark II a little bit earlier if we'd have got seen a little bit more screen time. But even if you want to keep the Mark II at an hour and give me 10 more minutes of Roddy, I'm completely happy with that. Like, you know what I mean? I just think that's the only thing I would have changed, because, you know, Terrence Howard, I'm just a big fan. I think he was in the peak of his powers there. And I haven't seen a lot of that show. What's it called? Power, is it?
Yeah.
What's that one he does? Where he's like a music thing or something?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
Empire. Empire.
Yeah.
But I assume he's probably gone on to great strengths in that show, and he's probably at the peak of his powers now. But right then, it seemed like, you know, around the time of Hustle and Flow, and that he's at the peak of his powers. Yeah, exactly. And it just felt like he was like they were going to be the columns that the MCU was going to be put on top of. And it felt like that at the start, and just to see him be changed, being recast with Don Cheadle, because something so like stupid as money, when Marvel have so much of it. I just think that it's disappointing that we didn't get to see more screen time, and then later on obviously he gets recast. But like, my best in terms of the Iron Man movie experience would be the suit and how the suit was conveyed on the screen. It looked real, it looked like it was being worn, it looked like it existed in the present. Like, and even later on when you had that gigantic Ironmonger suit, that looked real. It looked like technology that not only could exist, but looks like technology that does exist. You know what I mean? And I think one thing with Jon Favreau was making a movie, he had a big sign in the writer's room saying plausibility, written across in huge writing. That was the code word for the entirety of the Iron Man project, was plausibility. And I think that's something that the MCU and the Marvel movies and Iron Man itself has kind of gone away from, is plausibility. And I think the best thing about Iron Man in terms of its scope and scale is massive, of course. It's an Iron Man movie, but it looks so grounded and so real, and looks like it's like something you said the other day. It's like technology in the MCU is like 2022. It's 22-100 now. It's like it's so far advanced that it's nearly beyond our realm of understanding. You know, nanobots and all this shit. But
entire cities, entire countries that are
hidden within shields of you know what I mean, like
nanotech.
Intergalactic travel, beings like a god coming down Titans. This
time travel.
Yeah, exactly. Time travel, like, you know. Exactly. So when you look at like how it's gone, and how it's definitely left behind that keyword of plausibility that Jon Favreau put up in huge writing in that writing room, I think Iron Man is the epitome of a plausible superhero story told on a massive scale in a real world. And I think that's the best thing I found about the Iron Man experience. And the worst thing would be, I think I would have, like what Ben touched on earlier, was I would have liked to see a bit more of a climax. That action sequence at the end could have been 5 minutes longer. Doesn't sound like a lot, but in terms of the scope of an action sequence, 5 minutes is the world. You know what I mean?
No, of course it is.
So
at that intensity, at that pacing, it's a lot. It is a lot.
Yeah, and aside from the battery power being ridiculous, 7%, and he's flying around the place, whatever, Iron Man, calm down. But so I think so the best for me would be the way it grounded in its superhero world in reality, and the worst would have been, I think, the climax was a bit undercooked, and we could have seen an extra 5, maybe 10 minutes of a fight sequence, or as Ben mentioned earlier, we could have seen a bit more struggle there. You know what I mean? Like, because it kind of seemed like he was having a bit too much fun in that fight sequence at the end, because this is a guy that's supposed to be nearly dying a minute ago. He's near dead. The thing that's preventing him from dying is dying of power, and he's like having a bit too much fun. You know what I mean? It's like everything's dying. He's dying of dying. Yeah. So I just think he's having a bit too much fun in the climax. It could have given it a bit more gravitas, and I know they tried to do that with the explosion of the arc reactor, but I just think like he's having a little bit too much fun. But so Ben, before we get the fuck out of here, do you have anything else you want to say about Iron Man, or will we wrap this bitch up?
Ooh, what else can I say? I think we covered it all. We put it to rights. John Favreau and Robert Downey Jr.
John Favreau. Hallowed be thy name.
I think we did. And then put DC to rights, and it's the shitty coffin it should be.
Shitty S-shaped. The S on the coffin is shitty.
Well, thanks for being with us, Ben. That means a lot to us.
And Ben, so before we get out of here, I want to ask you, and I want you to tell people where can they find you, what you doing, what have you got coming up, what have you got out at the minute, because we know you're a very busy man. Man, I look at your word counts and I'm like, this motherfucker must have 5 hands because you're so busy, and I want you know what I mean? It's crazy. This guy must be like, oh, Octavius, 4 laptops on the go or something. It's like a grandmaster pianist. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Roll a book while he's on the podcast.
In that 5 minutes.
Yeah.
In that break, I tell you.
So Ben, you're so busy.
My father was part octopus.
He loves the Squid Game.
Where can I find you, Ben?
Yeah, so Ben, where can I find you? What have you got out right now, and what have you got coming up?
Yeah, I am busy, to be honest. I love being busy to my own detriment sometimes. But yeah, so I'm currently wrapping up the brand new series, the Scalussen Chronicles, which is a sequel to the Emaneska series. It's Norse, it's dark, it's full of quests, full of magic dragons, it's brutal. Not quite grim dark, it's got a lot of humor in it. But it is, very kind of very action-based dark fantasy. So yeah, I love it. It's great fun to write. So that's kind of being wrapped up at the moment. I've got to write the 3rd one. I've got a new book coming out, which I've co-written with David Estes, the author of the Fate Mark saga. That's Avatar meets Venom. And it's going to be fun. It's unlike any book I've ever written, to be honest. And so that should be coming out hopefully next year. What else? I've got a Kickstarter going on at the moment. So I'm taking my very first book, The Written, turning it into an illustrated hardcover. And that is, currently 260% funded and still going. We've got 24 days left.
260% funded.
Plenty of time.
It's like that scene in Avengers where Iron Man gets hit with Thor's lightning. Yeah. You are 1,000% capacity.
All right, then. Just blast Thor. A little bit. I mean, to be honest, I've been blown away, to be honest. I didn't really expect to be this funded this quickly. But
hard work paying off, man.
Whatever I put. Well, I think it's the cover design, the artwork by Dennis Kornev, cover design by Rachel Sinclair Art.
Well, it's the decade, man. It's the decade of hard work that you put in. You're growing a fan base, you're growing a readership, and they see the hard work that you put in. And they see your stories are there, and they're well fleshed out universes. They keep coming back for more, and that's why it's your hard work and your vision, the way you create your stories. That's why you got funded the way you did, man. And that's the best thing you can do.
I'll tell you that, Vinny. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks so much, man.
Thanks for spending this time with us, man.
I mean, absolutely, yeah, it's been a great pleasure. And if you want to find me, I'm at bengalley.com. All my stuff is there, or linktree/Ben Galley. But thank you guys. It's been a great discussion. It's been fun, just like shredding, and also pimping films.
This guy gets it.
Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Ben. All right, folks, this is Dark Side of the Moon. That was Ben Galley. I'm your host, Vincent Green.
I'm your host, All Done Too.
We got Karen Mack in the back, and we'll see you next time, motherfuckers. Thanks, Ben, for coming to the Potty Snatcher studio. Damn it, the Dark Side studio. Damn it, Potty Snatcher.
Almost got through.
Nearly got through it. Never will. But thanks for coming down and spending some time with us talking Iron Man and revisiting the past of the MCU. And see you next time, motherfuckers.
My pleasure.